The Hive Pack is an accessory dropped by the queen bee in the expert difficulty or higher, which suggests that it increases the strength of friendly bees. But what does that even mean? And could it actually hurt your damage instead? Well, first, what are friendly bees? They're just projectiles that track down the closest enemy within a 50-tile radius. One important thing to note is their use of global immunity frames, meaning they can stop a list of other attacks from hitting that same enemy for a fraction of a second. But what's on that list? Boy, well, I'm glad you asked. Broadswords, short swords, spears, yo-yos, flails, boomerangs, pretty much any other melee weapon, all ranged bullets, arrows, and other projectiles that pierce, all rocket launchers, all piercing magic weapons, whips, tavern keep sentries, and all minions except for the ones that shoot non-piercing projectiles or are the Stardust Dragon for whatever reason. Some of the other minions can also not be affected if they are spawned before the bees. Note that the usage of global immunity frames here is different from the wasp spawn via the wasp gun, which have similar properties, but use static immunity frames instead, which will only block attacks from that specific projectile type instead of all attacks and projectiles. Now, instead of directly buffing the stats of the existing friendly bees, the Hive Pack has a 50% chance to replace any friendly bee projectiles with the tile-sized giant bee projectiles. These giant bees live for an extra second longer, can hit or bounce an extra time, and their base damage will always increase by 1 to 3 extra damage. The giant bees still use global immunity frames, and their increased active time and penetration means more of them will be around at once to block any of the previously mentioned attacks. But do the immunity frames lost actually matter that much? Aside from theory and some code, why not start testing with weapons that spawn bees? I tested the time it took to defeat bosses with and without the Hive Pack, and tested with both a damage focus loadout and a tank focus loadout. Let's start with the Beekeeper, which summons 1 to 3 bees upon successfully striking an enemy with its blade, and equipping the Hive Pack with this weapon will always summon an extra bee. However, the bees only deal a third of the base damage of the sword itself. Testing against Tyclops with the Hive Pack equipped resulted in an average decrease of 7% for the tank loadout and 15% for the damage loadout. This is likely because the broadsword hit of the Beekeeper will be impacted by the immunity frames from the bees. Next is the Hive 5, which is similar to the Beekeeper where it attacks with both the weapon itself and its bees, although it may only summon 1 bee with a 1 in 3 chance. Testing results here didn't show much of a change in damage with the Hive Pack equipped against either of these two bosses. After that we have the Bee's Knees. You'll spawn 3 to 6 bees whenever their arrows hit tiles or enemies. These friendly bees have 1 less pierce compared to the other weapons. Testing with the Bee's Knees against both Skeletron and the Wall of Flesh has a similar story to the Hive 5, although slightly more in favor of the Hive Pack providing an increase in damage. There's little reason as to why the Bee's Knees would suffer here, since the arrow projectile isn't affected by the bees due to being non-piercing. The last weapon to have both a main attack and friendly bees are the Bee Nades, which will spawn 15 to 25 bee projectiles after exploding like a grenade. Equipping the Hive Pack with the Bee Nades did increase the DPS up to 10% against the Wall of Flesh using the tank loadout. This damage increase is likely because the Bee Nade projectile also doesn't get affected by the bees, as it doesn't deal splash damage like a regular grenade, so the damage would have to increase due to the extra damage given to their friendly bees by the accessory. Now we have the Bee Gun, which only attacks with friendly bee projectiles, so the Hive Pack should theoretically only buff this weapon. And that assumption would be correct, as there was a 13% increase in DPS with the damage loadout, and a 29% increase in DPS with the tank loadout against Skeletron. All weapons that remain now are those that receive a direct buff from the Hive Pack and don't fire friendly bee projectiles. We'll start with the Hornet Staff, as the Hive Pack makes the minion shoot stingers 22% more often. Testing against Skeletron with this minion wasn't the most consistent, but a 12% increase was found with the damage loadout. Lastly, we have the Wasp Gun, which has both its base damage and penetration buffed by 5 while the Hive Pack is equipped. The Wasps don't have a giant form or receive any additional buffs from the Hive Pack. Against Golem, the Hive Pack resulted in a 7% increase with a tank-oriented setup, and a 13% increase with a damage-oriented setup. Now that we've gone through the bee weapons, there's something else I haven't covered yet that spawns bees, is dropped by the queen bee, and also gets buffed by the Hive Pack. That being the Honeycomb. Upon the player getting hurt, the player is given the honey buff for 5 seconds, and 1 to 3 bees are spawned with a base damage of 13. The bees spawned from the honeycomb get a 50% boost to their base damage in expert mode, and a 100% boost in master mode. The Hive Pack buffs this further by giving an additional chance to spawn another bee when hurt, and increases their base damage by 5. This damage cannot be boosted via other sources, and these bees will never deal critical hits. However, since these bees still have the iframe issues as before, do they affect their damage much? Results of the volcano against Cyclops had the bees cause a decrease with the tank loadout, but an increase with the damage loadout. Performance was similar with and without the Hive Pack. With a summoner setup against Skeletron, the Honeycomb reduced DPS by 8% with the bee armor loadout, while a tiny increase was reported with the Obsidian armor loadout. The Hive Pack provided a slight increase to the DPS. Against the Wall of Flesh using the Howling Bow, the Beast provided a 4 to 6% increase with and without the Hive Pack, and a 13 to 14% increase with it. This is likely because the Wall of Flesh fight consists of many parts, so immunity frames aren't much of an issue here. The overall increase in DPS, other than the Deerclops tests, is likely because you aren't getting hit all the time, so the bees spawned during fights are spaced out and aren't interfering that much. Now the Honeycomb has 4 upgrades, and out of all of them, the Stinger Necklace is generally the most useful, since armor penetration stacks with the Shark Tooth Necklace, giving the player a total of 10 armor penetration instead of 5. Note that having multiple Honeycomb accessories equipped won't spawn any additional bees when hurt. So in testing, equipping the Stinger Necklace over the Honeycomb pretty much always provided a 3 to 6% increase in DPS, the biggest outlier being the 23% increase in DPS recorded when fighting Skeletron using the bee armor loadout. I have also tested whether it is a good idea to swap out the Shark Tooth Necklace with the Stinger Necklace, and in almost every case the Stinger won. Equipping the Hive Pack with it grew the difference further. So, in conclusion, I wouldn't recommend using an accessory swap for the Hive Pack if you're using the Beekeeper or the Hive 5, as their higher damaging main attacks may suffer from the global immunity frames. However, if you're instead using any of the other bee related weapons, then I would recommend equipping the Hive Pack, as their attacks are either entirely bees or aren't affected by the global immunity frames. As for the Honeycomb and their upgrades, if you're using range or magic weapons that don't pierce, or only certain minions, you can only benefit from having one of these accessories equipped. Otherwise, it may still be good if you don't outperform the DPS of the bees from the Honeycomb, or if you're fighting against a lot of targets. The honey buff the Honeycomb provides may also be helpful to have for defensive purposes, but this buff can also be acquired by standing in honey, or by quick buffing honey bottles to get the buff for 15 seconds. And if you can, make sure to use a Stinger Necklace over base Honeycomb, as its extra armor penetration can even be useful into hard mode with low base damage weapons like the Mega Shark with crystal bullets. You may still be able to use effective weapons with Stinger Necklace effectively if you don't get hit to activate those problematic bees. But generally, if you are vastly outperforming the potential DPS of the bees, then you could run into some issues. That's all though. If you enjoyed this video, you may like some of my other content, such as this complete guide to the Old One's Army video I made recently, which took me around 3 months to make. And of course, if you want to, go subscribe or something. Thanks for watching.